Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. So, I just finished watching Mysticon's first episode, Sisters in Arms, the latest series from Nickelodeon about 4 girls who one day become the titular Mysticons. I first learned about this series back when it was still a cartoon for boys, and I could even find the promo image that still reflected that. But of course they scrapped it so they could chase the girl demographic. I've been excited about the show since then, and am a little disappointed by its premiere episode, mostly from a visual standpoint. While the overall art style chosen is great, the actual act of animating it and the horrendous CGI backdrops and cars is god-awful. I have no clue why the cartoon industry still can't put out quality CGI. When it comes to the movies, we're great, but somehow we've only made tiny improvements since the days of reboot in the realm of television. And honestly, it's inexcusable given how good fellow Nick cartoon Miraculous Ladybug looks with its CGI. Moving on, there's the matter of the characters. Some of them aren't much better than the visuals, as the show introduces us to characters like Piper and Zarya, the former of which spouts off terrible lines such as "meanie pants," and essentially is the Pinkie Pie of the show if Pinkie Pie was written terribly out of place. While the other drops lines like "later haters" without an inch of irony. The show makes it super apparent that, despite being thieves, these 2 girls help the poor children of the city. Obviously done to excuse their behavior or explain it, but the show kinda drops the ball by making them both still incredibly irritating. I find it hard to relate or feel bad for these characters when they act horrible and protest at being called thieves. You can steal from the rich to feed the poor all you want, but that's still stealing. You're thieves. In the early scenes of the episode, Zarya copies a key with some fairly advanced tech, seemingly not uncommon in this weird futuristic fantasy world the show inhabits, but then proceeds to use it to open a ship's door. Why? You have advanced technology in this world. Your cars actually fly, but somehow a ship uses things like old-timey keys and keyholes. I'm sorry if this is a minor detail, but I could not for the life of me accept it. By the time we move on to the princess and her story, we're about 11 minutes in. We managed to go that long before we get the expected line about double standards. So that's something. Next episode, we'll get a lesson about the patriarchy, I'm positive. Probably one of the better written scenes in this episode was when Arcana, the princess, watches her parents get turned to stone. It's a bit of an emotional moment, and it adds some stakes and weight to the show beyond protecting some artifact from some dead dudes. Hopefully this doesn't get immediately dropped in later episodes just so that the series can be fun and positive again. Oh, and another thing I liked about the show was that the girls don't instantly get along with each other. That's probably one of the better things about 2 of them being peasant thieves. There's this clash between the rich and the poor here, and it's fairly entertaining. I'd be a little miffed if the girls teamed up and girl power suddenly made them besties. The show is for young girls after all, but there's a good lesson to be had about learning that not everyone will be friends. Now, I'm still not sold on this series after watching this first episode. Some of the characters grate on my nerves, and considering this is actually meant to be an action series, but for girls, the animation is bad, with only a few moments that stand out as competent. However, there is a decent show somewhere under all that, and I'll be excited to see what kind of stories Mysticons will tell. Will it live up to other female action series like Kim Possible or Miraculous Ladybug? Or will it crash and burn? Who knows? Did you catch the premiere of Mysticons? What did you think of it? Let me know down below and tell me who your favorite character is. Thanks for watching, and take care. Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. Episode 2, How to Train a Mysticon, isn't a bad episode, but it basically is the second episode of every generic action fantasy cartoon series that has ever existed. What do you as a writer do when you've assembled your cast of heroes? Why, write a training episode that leads into them having to chase a number of magical objects that will enhance their power or do something along those lines. you've basically done your job for the remainder of the season, or at least the very next few episodes. Also, remember when I said it's cool the girls aren't instantly friends? Well, scratch that, because that's basically out the window with episode 2, as they're now besties. Seriously. And all it took was a training montage, who knew? Not to mention any sense of conflict in this episode when it comes to, I don't know, Arcana figuring out what she needs to do also gets quickly solved by the other girls just showing up to support her, when 1 second ago her head was still firmly shoved up where the sun don't shine. What a switch. Now, what else should a generic second episode of a fantasy series do? Set up an oh-so-obvious bait-and-switch traitorous baddie that turns out to be the opposite of what the writers are setting it up to be. See this old bearded dude? Wow, he's a big fat meanie, right? If there's a traitor, it's gotta be him. Nope, it's that young black mage's sister. Whoa, totally didn't see that coming, did you? That's a sarcastic way of saying it couldn't have been more telegraphed that the grouchy sister was actually the evil mage from episode 1. Not only am I sad they couldn't even do that bait and switch correctly, but they showed their hand so soon into the season. Why not keep the traitor plotline going beneath the surface, build up Tasma as a great ally, then pull the rug out from under our heroes? Because that would just be too much for Grant Suave, writer of this particular episode. Someone needs to tell Mysticon's writers that girls aren't stupid. If I can figure it out, they probably did too. There's a lot of ways this episode fails to do what it sets out to do. I've listed just a few of them. It falls too close in the footsteps of every other fantasy cartoon. Any drama that could have fueled future stories is quickly forgotten. It can't provide a genuine mystery for the life of it. And even its not so subtle attempts at humor generally fail. I mean, whoever writes Piper's lines needs to be sat down with someone a lot funnier than them, because Piper's dialogue falls flat. Now, I started this review off by saying it wasn't a bad episode. That was actually my bait and switch. In fact, it was a bad episode, largely because of how generic it turned out to be. It didn't have anything new to say or do within its fantasy trappings, and I can't see how they expect to tell any worthwhile stories when they telegraph them from so far ahead. The one positive I have to say is that it could have been much worse, and that you can probably get through it without groaning, but don't expect much else to be going on. That's it from me. Now sound off below with your own opinions on this episode. What did you think of Tasma's betrayal? And does her name remind you of the Tasmanian Devil too? Thanks for watching, and take care. Stiffly animated Mysticons manages a halfway decent episode with episode 3. It still is fairly flawed, but if you can look past the one-dimensional stepbrother, some generic orc enemies, and weirdly out-of-place references, there's an entertaining episode somewhere there. A lesson about not misusing your powers is also buried somewhere in the episode too, though you'd be forgiven if you forgot that midway through. Also, I'm confused how 2 orphans went dress shopping. The best part of episode 4, the Mysticon kid, is inarguably the last few minutes, thanks to the antics of Doug and the lone security guard. It's just the right amount of fun in an otherwise, at least the writer's attempt, serious moment. The rest of the episode is serviceable enough. I'm not a fan of the lesson being to allow Piper to continue on being annoying though. She's easily the worst part of the show, in my own opinion, and it could have been a maturing moment for her, but maybe that will come in later episodes. My comments about the animation and action remain the same. But I will give an eye for an eye this. I didn't see that twist coming. I won't spoil it for you, but the Revenge Beast is not who you think it is, and it's probably one of the better things the show has done. The rest of the episode, though, is just okay. I've seen it enough times in other shows to know it by heart. I don't really have anything else to say. I'm really not looking forward to reviewing more of this show. And those are my quick, feverish thoughts on these episodes. I'll apologize for doing them so quickly, but it was either this or continue to put them off, making more and more of my other videos be late in response. You can expect another Spider-Man and Mysticon review later this week. For the next couple of days, though, I will be nursing this fever. Thanks, and take care.